Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday, wherever you are in the world. I'm just checking that we are live and that the streaming gods are with us. Yes, I'm told that we are live and things are happening, so that is amazing. Welcome, everybody, to today's Wonder Why Lunch and Learn. And I love doing the series. You can see that we have with us today emotional health coach, Karena Neukirchner, and she is going to be talking to us about self-sabotage, why we do it, and how we can stop doing it. And this is a really, really relevant topic for what I talk about here in LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching me, and in my Reshape Method program, because we are all about helping to get a strong, agile, pain-free body to match your strong, agile, youthful mind. Because this is midlife. It's no more same old, same old. This is your chance to set those next phase life and work goals and to crush them. But you may find that you've set the goals, but you're not really crushing them because there's a little bit of self-sabotage kicking in. And that is what Karena is going to be helping with us today, because I know I've been there, done that. And we got to keep working through it. Because as you say, that self-sabotage, that critic, it's insidious, right? So welcome. So wonderful to have you with us today on our Lunch and Learn. Tell us a little bit about you and what you're going to be talking to us about today. Super excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, like Tracy already said, I'm a trauma-informed emotional health coach, and I am trained in a really cool technique that is a body-centered emotional processing technique that helps you get into the subconscious aspects of what's holding you back. And so for the past few years, I have journeyed into the subconscious with hundreds of people, and I've learned so much. And a lot of people come to me because self-sabotage is something that's happening. And like Tracy said, this group is all about people who want to crush their goals. And midlife is also a time for redefining who we are, for stepping out of the old conditioned comfort zone and expanding into who we want to be. And when we're going for new goals, when we're expanding, when we're trying to move out of our comfort zone is one of the prime times when self-sabotage comes forward. But it can be
so
really
let us know. Maybe people can let us know in the comments if you're watching live in the Facebook group. And if you want to add comments, come and hop into the Facebook group. It's called the Peri and Menopause Movement and Reshaping Club. That's where you can pop your comments. I'll be looking on LinkedIn too. But let us know below. Say hi. Let us know where you're from. Go #replay if you're watching on the replay. And let us know if self-sabotage is something that you're struggling with. And what else would you like people to tell you in the comments?
Yeah, I would love to hear if self-sabotage is something that you experience when you start to try to expand, when you want to step out of your old conditioning. Yeah, amazing. And we'll talk about more.
I will watch the comments, and if there are any relevant questions, is it okay if I just interrupt you and ask?
Yes.
Okay.
It is absolutely okay.
Ask away, peeps.
Yeah, and why don't I start sharing my screen and my slides, and we can dive right in. Is that good, Tracy? And then you can just pop in with any questions. Okay,
amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
Please.
Let's do it. All right, there we go. So as you already know, the talk is why you continue to self-sabotage, plus how to break the cycle to move forward. And self-sabotage is really a frustrating pattern of internal conflict. You say you want one thing, but you consciously or unconsciously act in ways that prevent that very thing from happening. And what I want to be really clear about is that it happens to all of us. It's not that there's something wrong with you, and we're going to really unravel why it happens today. And I also want to emphasize that if it's something that you could solve with willpower, if it's something that you could figure out or solve with your intelligence, you already would have done it by now, right? Because we are motivated people and intelligent people in this group, and you have willpower. And so if something is happening in your life where you're feeling like you're lacking willpower, or where you're feeling like you're stuck, then it's likely that self-sabotage is at the roots of it. Feeling like you're stuck, then it's like, So self-sabotage can look like acting in direct opposition to your goals. Like that's the clearest definition of self-sabotage. But here are some other things that you might be experiencing that also are self-sabotage. So believing your inner critic and staying small, being too perfectionistic to try new things or follow your dreams, ignoring your own gut feelings, emotions, needs, and desires, or even just downplaying your own emotions, needs, and desires. Avoiding things that feel good to you and bring you joy. Sometimes we get too hyper-focused on hustling or working or being serious, and we forget those things that feel good to us. People pleasing and compulsively putting the needs of others before your own is a form of self-sabotage, and also procrastination. And again, it's not your fault. We all do this to some degree or another. I'm just helping you identify where it may be coming through in your life. So I look at self-sabotage through the lens of parts work, which you may have heard of. So there's a particular type of parts work called internal family systems, developed by Dr. Dick Schwartz. And it's really a complete model of the personality and psyche. And he says that our psyches are naturally made up of many different parts. So it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, that you have multiple different parts. And this is really common, right? Maybe one part of you wants to sit on the couch and eat a pint of ice cream, and another part of you wants to do the dishes and go take a walk, right? So in that example, those are two conscious parts of you that just have different desires, different motivations, and they both may be playing a role in your life. And when they're both conscious parts, right, you can just say like, okay, well, I'm going to choose this one because I haven't actually watched Netflix on the couch for a while. Or, you know what, I know that tomorrow I'm going to be so much happier if I do the dishes and take a walk, right? When we're conscious of the two conflicting parts, it's pretty easy to come to an outcome that is, good for you. But when we have a subconscious part that's controlling part of our motivations, part of our behaviors, part of our feelings and thoughts, that's when it gets really tricky. And one more thing I want to point out about parts work is that Dr. Schwartz says that all of these parts have positive intent, but they can create chaos and pain in our lives when they're working on limited information or are working against our conscious goals and desires. So all parts of our psyche are good. It's normal to have multiple parts. There's nothing wrong with that or pathological about that. But this is the root of self-sabotage. And I'm going to show you a holistic model of the psyche just so you can have a sense of what's going on subconsciously, because we rarely think about the subconscious in our everyday lives, and yet it controls a huge part of our lives. So we've got this lovely iceberg here, and current neuroscience tells us that 95% of our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and motivations actually come from the subconscious. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to show here with the iceberg. Like the
95%.
Yes.
That's insane. Okay. Yeah.
It's really powerful, and it's really especially tricky if we have some stuff going on in the subconscious that is problematic for our conscious goals, holding us back, causing us to self-sabotage. So this line of consciousness is like where the water is on the iceberg, and everything beneath it, that 95%, is our subconscious, and everything above it is our conscious self. So in our conscious self, it's like who we think we are, the stories we have about ourselves, our logic, our intellect, our plans, our goals, our willpower, our ego sense of self. It's just who we think we are most of the time, because that's mostly what we identify with is our conscious self. But in our subconscious is our limiting beliefs, our inner child, our unprocessed emotions, implicit memories, which can also be called cellular memories or body memories, which are a big thing in trauma work and somatic psychology. All of our trauma responses and the coping mechanisms that we develop based on them. And if you don't like the word trauma, you can call them stress responses, but we all have some pre-patterned and conditioned responses in our bodies that came from overwhelming or stressful experiences, and those are in our subconscious. We have subconscious or even unconscious commitments, which we're going to talk a lot more about because they have a lot to do with why we self-sabotage. Basically, in our subconscious are all of the aspects of ourselves that we've repressed, rejected, or judged. We have very deep and specific mental models, which are also called schema or internal working models in different areas of psychology, but they are implicit concepts and expectations of how the world works. And also the primal parts of our nervous system are mostly subconscious. And one thing I really want to note about these primal parts of our nervous system is that they're here to help us survive. They have huge power over our lives because survival is kind of the number one goal that we evolved to have on a biological and physiological level. And these primal parts of our nervous system, they really don't care about our quality of life at all. All they care about is surviving. And so sometimes when they kick in, that's when our quality of life can suffer a little bit because they don't care if we're achieving our goals. They just care that we're alive and breathing, right? And the more stress we get, the more these primal parts of our nervous system actually turn on because they think we need them, because we're living in a world where our nervous system that evolved over so many years and generations of people who weren't living in this type of stress, they had different types of stress. We're now living in a world where our primal parts of our brain can interpret stress because our boss gets mad at us at a meeting or because someone cuts us off in traffic. And the primal parts of our brain will interpret that as a threat, almost like we're being chased by a lion or something like that, or chased by a predator, So these primal parts of our nervous system are unfortunately sometimes really overreactive when we're experiencing stress. They're maybe, possibly, sometimes considering it a much bigger threat than it really is. And that's when we get stuck in cycles of stress. So another cool thing about your subconscious, though, is that besides these limiting beliefs and these primal parts and these stress responses and coping mechanisms, there's also this deep inner wisdom. The intelligence of your body lives here, and often big parts of your authentic self live in your subconscious. So like I already said, the aspects of ourselves that we've repressed, rejected, or judged live here. And so many of us have repressed big parts of our creativity, big parts of our joy, big parts of our authentic intuition, things that just didn't fit in our families or schools or societies when we were growing up. We've gone ahead and pushed them into the subconscious. And so when we do subconscious work, not only are the wounds there that we kind of need to address and heal, the limiting beliefs, the inner child, that kind of stuff, but there's also this deep well of joy and creativity and wisdom. And it's just, there's a lot of beauty in your subconscious too. So I don't want it to feel super heavy when I talk about it. So that's kind of just an overview, a holistic view of the psyche. We mostly forget about the bottom portion. We mostly forget about the subconscious, and yet it is motivating 95% of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So it's so important. And a point that I often point out, because I'm rooted in trauma work and somatic psychology, is that we often call it the subconscious mind, but it's not only contained in your brain and nervous system, it actually exists in your body. So your subconscious and your body are deeply linked together. Okay, so this is when we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what is causing our self-sabotage. Okay, so, and this is again going back to Dr. Dick Schwartz and internal family systems. So let's say something happens when you're a kid, it's overwhelming. You have a big emotion that's overwhelming. As children, we actually don't have the ability to regulate our emotions without help from the external world, help from a loving attachment figure, a loving parent, or someone who can take care of us. So let's say something happens, it's too overwhelming, there's nobody there to help us regulate, or sometimes the adults are even causing us to even be more overwhelmed or dysregulated. So we shove that overwhelm into our subconscious psyche, right? And so that wound or that hurt or whatever was overwhelming about it, that stays there in our subconscious psyche, and it becomes a part of us. And Dr. Dick Schwartz in Internal Family Systems, he calls them exiles because they're parts of ourselves that we have exiled away. And I just call them vulnerable or wounded parts, which I kind of like. It's a little bit more gentler in my lexicon. So we are biologically wired to try to avoid pain. So let's say we have this wound or this pain in our subconscious psyche. So another part of our psyche will develop around this wound to try to protect us from pain. And those are called protector parts. And they come to try to take us away from the pain. So I use a metaphor. Let's say that you're out taking a walk one day and you get a rock in your shoe. So the rock in your shoe will start to rub on your skin, right? And that will become like a little wound. And so the nerves in your foot will tell your brain like pain, 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 right? Because it doesn't want you to keep walking and make it worse, right? And so that's why we have pain on an emotional level, and that's why we have pain on a physiological level. It's to give us a sign that there's pain that needs help with, needs healing, needs attention, basically. So let's say we don't know that we can remove the rock from our shoe. So we might come up with a self-protective strategy of hopping on one foot, right? We just hop on the other foot. It's not an effective way to take a walk, but it will prevent us from the pain, right? Or maybe we just stop walking entirely, right? We're like, it hurts every time I walk, I'm not going to walk, right? That is a self-protective strategy. It's not a very functional self-protective strategy. Like, as you and I know, the best thing to do would be to take the rock out of your shoe and keep walking. But sometimes these protector parts of our psyche are operating on limited information, and they don't come up with the very best way to protect you. They don't come up with the best solution. They just come up with a survival solution. They want to get you away from the pain. And this happens emotionally as well. Like, maybe let's say that when I was a kid, I felt really rejected and shamed or something. And so a protector part might come in where I develop a very grandiose, condescending personality, right? It's a overcompensation for the fact that deep inside there's this wounded part that feels really not good enough, feels really shamed. Or I might create a self-protective strategy of like, well, I'm just not going to interact with people because people are what caused this, right? So again, maybe not the most functional, but it will in some ways keep me away from the pain. So anyway, that's what's going on in our subconscious. Is we have these wounded parts, we have these protector parts, and this plays hugely into self-sabotage. And we're going to look at a little bit more deeply. So your self-sabotaging tendencies are actually serving a purpose and or meeting a need. And they're most often the work of a protector part. So these protector parts are trying to prevent you from feeling pain, and things like emotional pain, rejection, failure, shame, embarrassment, being ostracized from a group. Those sorts of things are the pain I'm talking about. Or they're trying to help you meet a need. And we have a need to feel seen. We have a need to belong. We have a need to feel safe, to feel worthy of love, etc. So even though to your conscious mind, your self-sabotaging behaviors and tendencies may not make conscious sense, something about it makes sense to your psyche. Something about it is serving a purpose or meeting a need deep in your psyche. And when you can start to understand that, there can be a little bit more self-understanding that comes in, sometimes a little bit more softening, and your conscious mind may not fully believe me yet, and that's totally okay too. But generally what's happening is that a protector part has committed to some self-protective strategy, and it may not be serving you, but that protector part is going to keep doing it, right? Okay, oops, nope, I think I went too far. Yeah, so these protector parts are often formed during childhood, and they're often working on limited information. And they think they're helping you, but they're actually causing more problems. So this I want to mention at the bottom is from psychologist Sarah Payton, who's a really interesting author and neuroscience educator. And she talks about unconscious contracts. She has an entire book about self-sabotage. And she says that these protector parts make unconscious contracts with us that sound somewhat like, I'm not going to da-da-da-da-da in order to da-da-da-da-da, no matter the cost to myself. So one self-sabotaging behavior that I had for a long time is that I did feel very shamed when I was a kid. I had a very shame-based sense of self for a long time. And so I experienced a lot of social anxiety, a lot of social avoidance, and it was very deep-rooted in me just to feel uncomfortable in relationship to other people. Now, I worked on that. I've worked on that a lot. I've done a ton of subconscious self-healing around it to the point that I no longer really have that shame-based sense of self very much. And I very rarely have social anxiety anymore. But for, 3 decades of my life, social anxiety was like what I experienced all the time. And it was only when I found regenerating images and memory that I was able to work through that. So anyway, as an adult, I've worked through it. I've done the regenerating images and memory. I don't have that core sense of shame that continues to rule my life, but I needed to grow my business. And I wanted to start doing short form videos on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube and all the places. And to my conscious mind, that seemed like a great idea, right? That was going to be a great idea. But some part of my inner child was very triggered because it felt unsafe to put myself in front of that many people. And the first time that I had a video go a little bit viral, my inner child totally shut down and I did not make another video for 2 weeks, because there was a part of me that was so triggered. And so the contract, the unconscious contract somewhere in there was, I'm not going to show myself in this world in order to keep myself safe, no matter the cost to myself, right? So my inner child did not want to be seen by that many people. It didn't feel safe, you know, and it didn't matter the cost to myself. Like, it didn't matter if my business didn't grow. It didn't matter if my business not growing affected my finances. I was not going to make another video until I worked through that, you know? And so I had to deal with that inner child part really lovingly, with huge compassion, but to figure out what the trigger was and how to make her feel safe. And now, you know, I make videos all the time. It has been the #1 way that my business has grown. And I'm super grateful that I worked through that in an integrative and loving way, because I don't know if I could have worked through it with willpower. That shutdown for 2 weeks was really big. It was really deep in my psyche. But the fact that I did work through it actually leaves me so much stronger, more whole, and more integrated on the other side. So that's just an example of the self-sabotage, the subconscious or unconscious self-sabotage. Somewhere within me, I had a contract. That inner child is the wounded, vulnerable part, right? The part that shut me down is the protector part, who had that unconscious contract that to not be seen. And so this is an example of just how, when we're trying to expand, when we're trying to become more than we've been before, parts of our psyche can experience that as uncomfortable, can experience that as a stressor instead of a good thing. And that's when we really have to go a little deeper and figure out what's going on and unravel it. And so now I'm going to talk about how we can unravel some of the self-sabotage in your psyche. So when we're working with subconscious parts, it's actually more simple than we think it is, because these parts simply want to be seen and heard compassionately. Just like all of us, they just want to be understood and loved. It's not this big thing, but they want to be seen and heard. And you really can't force them or use willpower or coerce them, right? And you may have tried this before, and this is when you go for a goal and you go gung-ho, but then you completely burn out, or maybe you even get sick, or some part of you energetically collapses and you can't keep going, right? When you try to force, it often won't work. And this work takes deep self-understanding and self-compassion. But when we understand these parts, we begin to understand our emotions, habits, thoughts, and behaviors deeply, and then we can effectively shift all of these things with ease. When we shift things deep in our subconscious, then we don't have to have the force, and we don't have to have the willpower. I mean, willpower is always a good quality for every human to have, but this shifts deep in our psyche, and then the ripples go out to our life in a whole different way than when we're working from the conscious mind down, when we're working with the subconscious and coming up. It's much, much easier. So one thing you can do is start to begin to understand the roots of your self-sabotage. So I've just given you some questions here that you can ask yourself. You could journal about them. You can just breathe and consider them. But if this behavior makes sense, if this self-sabotaging behavior makes sense, what purpose is it serving? What is it protecting me from? What need is it meeting? And are there any benefits or upsides to this behavior? So that's a good line of questioning. Another thing you can do is imagine being successful in this area of your life. So let's say you're not self-sabotaging. Let's say you actually reach this goal. What qualities do you have to embody to achieve this success? And how would you have been treated as a child if you had embodied these qualities in your home or your school, right? Like, my inner child felt like if I was seen, I would be sane, right? And I needed to be seen in order to create my successful business, right? And that's more than just the videos I create, right? I need to be seen in order to actually give my gift to the world. So this is a really interesting question that I feel like has uncovered a lot of layers for me, is that, oh, right, that would not have felt safe when I was a kid. And then you can ask yourself some questions like, what are your protector parts afraid of? And how could you create more safety so they feel less afraid? And what would they rather do to support you if they weren't always sabotaging you? Or you can simply go back to Sarah Payton's quote here, I'm not going to blank in order to blank, no matter the cost to myself. Maybe that sentence can uncover to you a little bit what's going on subconsciously. Now, these are all questions of your conscious mind. You know, when I'm working with clients and students, we actually go very deeply into the body, into the subconscious, to dialogue. And that's not super easy to do on a live stream over lunch, but still these questions of your conscious mind can start unlocking it for you. There's things to consider. And when you begin to ask yourself these questions, when you begin to look at things differently, then the answers can start to come to you. So asking these things compassionately, knowing that your subconscious self-sabotage doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or that you're bad or broken. The self-judgment makes it a little bit harder. But if you can have compassion, these are great lines of questioning to help you go a little bit deeper. And then I'm going to leave you with one more tool that I love that really can help you work with your subconscious. And they are called affirmations. So instead of affirmations, when we're working with the subconscious, we work with affirmations, because when we don't believe them or they feel inauthentic, they don't actually make a difference. When we don't believe them and they feel inauthentic, they're just coming from the conscious mind. They're just coming from that 5%. And that 5% doesn't have power over the 95%. Not very much power, at least, right? And so we want to work with the subconscious. So affirmations are great if you already believe it or some part of you believes it. But if they feel inauthentic at all, then they're not actually working for you. And so I use affirmations with my clients. So this is just putting what if at the beginning of an affirmation in a lot of ways. And asking yourself these what if questions primes your subconscious brain for creative problem solving. And your mind will begin to look for answers to these questions, because our mind has a thing called instinctive elaboration. Once you ask yourself a question, or even if somebody else asks you a question, parts of your subconscious mind are going to try to answer that question. So this happens to me all the time. I play the Wordle every day. I don't know if there's any other Wordle people out there, but most of the time I get it pretty quickly. But some days when I'm really stuck and I'm just like, what in the world? I have no idea what this word could be, right? I put down the Wordle, I go do the dishes, I go start work, I go take a shower, whatever. And then the word will just pop in. That's the result of instinctive elaboration. Some part of my brain kept chewing on that question, and it brought me the answer at a time when I wasn't even aware that I was still focused on that question. And affirmations also create more space for self-acceptance and self-compassion. Sometimes affirmations feel like pretending, and that's actually not self-acceptance. That's different. And so this is more space for that. And like I said, when affirmations feel inauthentic, you'll actually feel a tension in your body when you say something. We're mostly taught out of feeling the tension in our body, but you can be sure that when there's tension in your body, there's tension in your psyche. And I'm also trained in a technique called havening. And havening looks like these 3 pictures. You can just do these 3 levels of havening touch. And this calms those primal parts of the brain I mentioned before. The primal parts of your brain that might think it's a threat to do a video in front of people, right? All right, like I'm no longer in that, but I was really, really in that not even a year ago. So havening is shown to calm the primal parts of your brain. So I oftentimes pair the havening with the affirmations, because I know I'm soothing the deep parts of my nervous system while I'm doing the affirmations. So havening can look like rubbing your palms together like this. It can look like rubbing down your arms from shoulder to elbow, shoulder to elbow, shoulder to elbow, or it can look like rubbing your cheeks or your face. And all of these are very soothing on a physiological and a biochemical level. So you can do the havening touch if you want to soothe your nervous system. And here are some affirmations I would suggest if you find yourself in self-sabotage. So just start by meeting yourself where you are with compassion and curiosity. So we kind of meet ourselves first. And it's like, well, what if there's an intelligence to the self-sabotage? What if this self-sabotage is my best course of action? I doubt it's your best course of action, but this is a way just to decrease resistance and just come into compassionate awareness of what's going on for you. What if some part of me is trying to protect me? What if this is somehow meeting a need, right? So you're just meeting yourself with compassion and curiosity, and then you can start to kind of shift things a little bit more deeply. Like, what if I have other options now? What would it be like to explore other ways of meeting this need? What if I've grown and changed since making this unconscious contact? What if there's a better approach available to me? And as you do these affirmations, just feel that your body relaxes as you say them. Instead of tension, which means tension in your deep subconscious psyche, This is relaxing to the body, which can actually help your nervous system shift. What if it's safe for me to move forward now? What if I don't have to be stuck in this pattern forever? What if I'm stronger and wiser and can handle this in ways that work better for me now? How might I approach this in a more empowering way? What if I can honor the parts of me that are self-sabotaging, but not be stuck in the self-sabotage, right? So just by doing the havening touch, just by asking these questions, you start to open up the creative problem solving area of your subconscious brain. And so that starts to unlock the stuckness, that unlocks the protector part, and you can start to move forward. So I hope these feel good to you. They always feel really good to me to soften. And, you know, if I were really stuck in self-sabotage, I would spend like 5 or 10 minutes doing some havening, doing the affirmations, because I'd really want that to sink into my body. And I'm not going to do that now during this presentation, but you can spend more time with these questions, spend more time doing the havening, spend more time coming up with your own affirmations, your own what if questions, things that you want to start to shift deep inside. And when we can shift things at the subconscious root, which takes compassion and understanding, things can change very quickly in our lives. And that is my presentation. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and see if there's any questions or thoughts.
Oh, Karena, that is incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know there are going to be lots of people watching this on the replay, on the replay, and that is very, very powerful work, because we've all been kind of fed this line that it's all about the affirmation. And I always believe that, you know, affirmations are what you're trying to convince yourself of something, but you know you're not convincing yourself, right?
Right.
So I have never heard of the concept of affirmations and of havening at the same time, and I can see how powerful that can be. And yeah, I get a sense of what you mean when you just put something more open-ended, right? So can you give us an example of how somebody could take a current affirmation that they're using and change that into an affirmation?
Yeah, that's great. You can do it with any of them. Like even just do a little experiment here. Like, what if you just say the affirmation, I am loved, things are working out for me, I'm going to have a great day. Like, feel in your body how that feels. And then just put what if at the beginning, like, what if I'm loved? What if things are working out for me better than I even expect? What if I'm going to have a great day today? Like, to me, my body feels completely different
because when I say I'm going to have a great day today, I could actually feel this little voice coming up. Well, no, you're probably not, right? This is going to happen. That is going to happen, and there's going to be a queue here, and the kid's going to whine, and like I can already hear those negative thoughts.
Right.
So we've done this before, and we didn't have a good day.
Exactly. And if you override that, it actually just creates more stress in your body, right? Instead of just being like, well, what if I have a great day, which doesn't force you to pretend anything, but it does open you to different possibilities. There's a softening inside. And, you know, this is getting a little bit deeper than I went in the presentation into somatic psychology. But when we're stuck, and I would consider self-sabotage a form of stuckness, what we really want is softness and opening to possibilities, right? Like, we don't have to jump from our conscious mind wants to jump from problem to solution, but our body and our subconscious wants freedom. It wants movement. It wants possibility. And then things can grow, you know, because you have a deep internal wisdom that can help you navigate into a better day, but you don't want to have to pretend like you're having a good day. And if you have a bad day, you deserve compassion, you know, not judgment. So
yeah, absolutely. So tell us how you work with people and how people can get hold of you.
Yeah, thank you. So my business name is Hello Inner Light. And so it's helloinnerlight.com, or you can find me on Instagram or Pinterest. Actually, I suggest following me on Pinterest. I have a whole series of information videos. And on Pinterest, it's really nice because I have them all in a board. Like I put my videos everywhere. They're on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere is at Hello Inner Light. But on Pinterest, it's really nicely organized just because, you know. So anyway, follow me on any of the places with at Hello Inner Light. I do information videos regularly. In fact, I'm going to publish one tomorrow on Pinterest called Affirmations for Self-Empowerment. Just because I love the affirmations so much. And I have a free guide on my website if you're interested called The Essential Guide to Embodied Emotional Healing. And that's really about how to integrate the body and subconscious into your emotional healing because it's so deeply important. And all trauma therapy these days, everything at the leading edge of trauma therapy is saying you have to incorporate your body. And so I just have a free PDF about how to untangle your emotions in your body, how to understand the language of your emotions. And so that's linked a bunch on helloinnerlight.com.
Amazing.
Or
And
you
maybe
can
if
go
you
to,
can put some links below in the Facebook group and in LinkedIn. And I love it, right? Because I'm working with the body. The work that we do is with the body. And a lot of these movements we're doing in the Reshape method, we're doing it's exercise, but it's not exercise, it's smart exercise, but it's also movement changing those limiting stuck motions in your body that you've developed, and also because it's of the tension, right? People feel a lot of emotional change because we're changing the way the body works. So we're coming in from a body perspective, and you're coming in more from an emotional, psychological perspective. So I think that is amazing, amazing. And it would be incredible if you could come and give a workshop to the Reshape Method members. Maybe we can chat about that.
Yeah, I would love to. Totally.
This is very powerful work, right? Because what we want to do at midlife, it is, and I loved your use of the butterfly, because that's really what's happening to us women in perimenopause. It is a metamorphosis, and we need to let go of all this physical and emotional junk so that we can, elevate and upgrade. So thank you for coming. And this is a huge part of us, right? Because the subconscious is controlling everything. So thank you. Very, very powerful. If people are watching on the replay, please just type #replay, and you can tag me or Karena, and we can answer any of your questions. Is there anything specific that you want anybody to ask that you could help them answer? Maybe we could ask people to put some affirmations below. Put one affirmation below, at the end of the week we'll do a draw, and of the people who've shared an affirmation with us and how that went. And I would be happy to gift people a free half-hour posture alignment session to share your affirmation.
Cool. That's amazing. Yeah. I would love to hear your affirmations. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I would love to answer them.
Okay, amazing. So tell us one more time how people can get hold of you. What is the main, do you have a website?
Helloinnerlight.com.
Yeah, so that's hello, HELLO, helloinnerlight.com.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming to chat to us today. It's been amazing. And have a wonderful rest. What if you have a wonderful rest of your day?
Totally.
Bye.